Viewers, welcome to Editorial. This is the ATN News Weekly where we talk life. We talk issues that shape life and issues that make life. I'm your host, Richard Moreno, and my guests at this time are Dr. Cecep Effendi, Director General, Center on Integrated Rural Development for Asia and the Pacific, and Bankar Roy, Founder Director, Barefoot College, India. Welcome to the show, sirs.
Thank you.
Start with you, sir. Your Barefoot College. That has been really a groundbreaking, epoch-making move. Your brainchild. Give us a total outlay of this.
I went to the most expensive school and college in India. But my real education started when I started living in villages as an unskilled laborer. My mother was horrified because she thought I was letting my family down by not using the elitist, expensive education I had. But I felt that the education that I had received, I wanted to utilize it in a way that could benefit my country. So I thought I'd live and work in a village, trying to find out how I could help. And that was when I was exposed to the most extraordinary knowledge and skills and wisdom that very poor people have, that you don't read about it in books and don't read about in college. And I found this practical wisdom and knowledge and skills so relevant and so important to bring into mainstream thinking, that these knowledge, skills and wisdom are still relevant today in 21st century India. And I thought I would bring that knowledge, skill and wisdom to the mainstream. And that was when I started this Barefoot College. The Barefoot College is something that respects knowledge, skills and wisdom of very poor people who've never been to school and college. It also symbolizes the poverty that you have all over the world. People who walk barefoot is symbolic of people who are very poor, living on less than $1 a day. And it's a college where there is learning and unlearning, where the teacher is the learner and the learner is the teacher. And what is most unique about the Barefoot College is that we don't give any certificates. The certification is done by the community you serve, not by the college or university you go to. So that certification we want the community to endorse and respect and recognize.
So what imbibed you with this idea in the first place?
I found that there were very simple solutions that the very poor people had, which seemed to be so commonsensical. For instance, water. Drinking water in villages is a very important, serious issue. When you go to the engineer will say, take water out of the ground 100 feet below and put in a hand pump or put in a tube well. And when I went to the old man in the village and said, what is the problem that you have and how did you solve your drinking water problem? He said, we collected rainwater. And we've always collected rainwater because rain is free, and as soon as it drops on the ground, you collect it and use it. But that has never got into the comprehension of an engineer because he's paper qualified. He's never been really to the practical solution on the ground. So we started adopting solutions which the very people would tell us that this is a solution, and we adopted it and found it was inexpensive, it was effective, it was impactful. So why not? So the Barefoot College has a certain disrespect for people with paper qualifications.
Sir, coming to you now.
Yes, please.
How do you plan, your organization, how do you plan to supplement Bankar Roy's plans for the Barefoot College in Bangladesh?
Let me begin by saying that CIRDAP is an intergovernmental organization. We work in 15 member countries, mostly with the Minister of Agriculture and Minister of Rural Development. Our focus is on poverty alleviations. And my belief is that this idea, fought by him for many, many years, how to provide, solar panel to the rural women is one of the answers to our question of poverty alleviation. How do we do it? We work through a number of partners that we have in every countries, and through this partnership, we can really make it happen at the very grassroots levels. And the most important target is the poor rural women, mostly in the very remote areas.
So in your country, Indonesia, how much effective has this program been, if it is?
We have projects in eastern Indonesia. I can say the least developed part of Indonesia, where majority of the people do not have the electricities. And I think if the people there wait for the government policy to implement the electricity, it will take years and years. By bringing these solar panels to these poorer people, actually we make a jumping, without having to go through a lot of procedures, waiting for a very long time. We can install these electricities. And this power that we bring to the rural poor can provide them with facilities that create income for them, providing the children with the light for them to study, and in one single time, we transform the entire villages.
Sir, the Guardian, the prestigious Guardian newspaper, has called you one of the 50 environmentalists that may save the earth. And also, you are also known as one of the 100 eminent people today. What do you have to say about this criteria?
I think it's an endorsement that we must not neglect what you hear from the people. It's an endorsement of the faith that we should have on the communities to identify and solve their own problem. And what we've done is something that is not new. It is what it's been talked about by Mahatma Gandhi 50, 60 years ago, that if you want to solve the problems at the village level, go back to the community and consult them and bring them into the development and decision-making process. So the fact that the Barefoot College has demystified and decentralized technology right down to the hands of very poor people, this is an endorsement. I think this is not something new, but it's very difficult for people to implement who have always considered a top-down solution as an answer to people's problems. The top-down solution will never work. It has to be bottom-up. And I think this is what the Guardian and Time Magazine endorse, the fact that we are recognizing the incredible knowledge of people who can solve their own problems. So why do we need people from outside to solve it when you're solving it yourself?
So on this note, we need the commercial, and we'll be back right here after the break. Viewers, we need to go for the commercial now. Stay with us, don't go away. Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back to Editorial, and my guest, Dr. Cecep Effendi, Director General, Center on Integrated Rural Development for Asia and the Pacific, and Bankar Roy, Founder Director, Barefoot College, India. Welcome back to the show, sirs.
Thank you.
And now, back to you. Mr. Roy, we'll talk about your plans for Bangladesh.
We tried a very low-cost, innovative solution in India of training rural illiterate women, most of them grandmothers, who have never left their villages in their lives. And we tried to find out if it was possible to train these illiterate grandmothers to be solar engineers, not through the written or spoken word, but through sign language. And we entered into an extraordinary partnership with the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, something called India Technical Economic Corporation, where if we should select a grandmother from any part of the world, the Government of India will pay the airfare and 6 months training costs for the women to come to the Barefoot College. So since 2008, we've had 2 courses, every course having 40 women from 10 different countries in the least developed countries to stay for 6 months, and through sign language becoming a solar engineer. Now please remember, these grandmothers know more about solar engineering than any graduate after 5 years of university, because they are practical, down to earth. They know how to install a solar lantern of 40 different electronic parts in 30 minutes and make it work. So since 2008 to 2016, we have taken this bottom-up Gandhian model to 78 countries around the world and trained 800 grandmothers. So we have tested it, proven it on the ground, and we brought that model to Bangladesh.
So now you want to prove the trickle-up motion, not the trickle-down motion.
Call it trickle up, but it never trickles up. It has to be bottom up. The trickle doesn't take place somehow. Everyone talks about it, but it trickles.
So your plans for Bangladesh?
So we have now trained 7 extraordinary grandmothers from Bangladesh who have come to the Barefoot College and come back. And we are looking for partners who would provide the support to buy the Indian equipment and solar electrify 3 villages in Bangladesh.
So how are you helping in this regard?
Well, you know, CIRDAP operate through its link institutions. In Bangladesh, we have 2 link institutions. One is BART in Komila, and the other one is RDA in Bogra. And through this link institution, we can organize training program for a number of women, because they are very close to the rural women in their areas. And secondly, we have been promoting the agenda of, you know, agro-processing from the waste products. Now, we realize very well later on that unless and until these women have the energy to produce this product, it won't work. And the beauty of this project is that you touch the poorest, the most illiterate people who you cannot imagine. You know, they can have the skill to develop, and they can have the capacity not only to have the skill, but also to get income for themselves. And at the end of the day, the entire village that become the target of the project can have the powers to provide the light for themselves.
So how do you plan, or when do you think your initial step will get started in Bangladesh?
We are looking for people who will give us financial support. Like, for instance, in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, we've got UN Women giving us money. We've got Enel Green Power from Italy giving us money for the equipment all over the world. Here we are expecting some support. It costs about $50,000 to solar electrify 100 houses. That means you get 4 hours of light for 7 years without any interruption in power supply. And you are saving about 10,000 liters of kerosene every year if you solar electrify a village. So we think that there is an option here that people must endorse, that if it is a bottom-up Gandhian model of solar electrifying 100 houses, then it is possible to look at the environment. It is possible to see that more children go to school at night, more women do some economic activities. This has happened all over the world. Now we want to introduce this in Bangladesh. And
have you made any representation to the government?
We are hoping to make a representation to the government to make it into one of the innovative projects. We want to do it in a pilot project on a small scale to see if it works, because the women from Bangladesh, who are your first and only solar engineers of Bangladesh, are extraordinary women. They have learned how to do the most sophisticated solar technology.
So where does CIRDAP come into the picture?
Well, we are intergovernmental agencies, and we work through with the governments, especially Government Training Institute. By playing this kind of role, bringing this model to the government agency, we can create multiple effects in the future. But more important than that, in the case of CIRDAP, once you succeeded in having this project done in the very remote area of Bangladesh, we can multiply it, not only for Bangladesh, possibly for Myanmar, for Nepal, for other countries, of CIRDAP member countries, for example. We want to learn from these experiences.
So you are to give an address at the 37th founding of CIRDAP. What you plan to highlight?
I plan to highlight that this is the year of the women. The men have had their say, and now it's time for the women to be change agents. And I think we have to invest more in women who stay in the community. So we have a saying that men are untrainable. Men want certificates, men want a skill, and they want to live in Dhaka. Now the women don't want a certificate. The women want to stay and use their skill for the betterment of their own village. And I think they are the future of Bangladesh.
So, sir, you advocate that education, or you may say a certificate, is there, but it is the knowledge behind the certificate that gets one into the buyer's market.
The practical knowledge behind the certificate is what we are looking for. You know, Mark Twain said, never let school interfere with your education. School is where you learn how to read and write. Education is what you get from your family, from your environment, and from your community. That we must not devalue and disrespect.
So, sir, any other, you have any other suggestion which might come for your projects in Bangladesh?
We want to adopt the barefoot model all over Bangladesh, wherever there are non-electrified villages, because it is much too expensive to bring conventional grid to Bangladesh. It is the decentralized solution that will work in Bangladesh in the future.
Dr. Cecep.
Yes, please.
Banka Roy has given various, plus points about this project.
Sure.
And you, what do you feel you will manage to supplement it accordingly?
Well, as I mentioned again and again, poverty alleviation is one of our core mandate. You know, that's our jobs in CIRDAP, and we will do our best to make it happen. And this is very convincing proof that women in the very remote areas, they may be illiterate, they may be uneducated, they may live in the faraway places, can still be empowered by bringing this technology to them. And by bringing this technology to them, you create a different kind of environment in the village itself. So the women will remain there, but they will remain in different kind of environment with enough light, to spend, and they have enough powers to be more creative.
Sir, in a roundup, do you have any suggestion?
I have learned over 40 years that it is important to listen to people. It is important to listen what they have to say. Unfortunately, our educational system has made us so impatient and arrogant that we don't listen to people who we think are inferior to us socially and intellectually.
So, sir, you think the catchword is listen?
Listen.
And on this note, sir, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very
and
much.
hope to have you at the earliest.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Viewers, we have come to the end of this edition of Editorial, but we will be with you the next time. Stay tuned to ATN News. From me, Richard Moreno, it's goodbye.